Time now for the business news with Nicholas Poynton. Nicholas, what have you got for us today? Some numbers about services, and you're telling me that their numbers are a lot worse than the manufacturing industry ones since lockdown.
Well, I come with more economic indicators today, and today is the BNZ Performance of Services Index, or the PSI. This is sort of a companion survey with the PMI, which I spoke about on Friday, and there's some interesting things going on with this particular result. First of all, as you might probably expect, the PSI did take a knock over the month of August. That's in light of those recent restrictions, and that's because many hospitality businesses couldn't really trade as normally because of social distancing requirements and things like that. All this amounted to the PSI falling 7 points, which tipped the index into contraction territory. So that's a reading below 50, and that comes after 2 months of solid growth in the PSI. We've also seen a continuation of a trend that we saw in the PMI on Friday, and that is weak employment intentions. We've now had 6 months on the trot here where the PSI employment sub-index has been below 50, which actually points to jobs being shed in the industry. What is really interesting about this latest result, though, is actually the regional breakdown. Yes, you'd probably expect that Auckland, the services sector there, would have fallen quite a bit. It also fell a little bit in Christchurch, but perhaps probably the biggest surprise is that it was the Otago Southland region which actually had the worst performance last month. BNZ said this is probably because of the Auckland tourist effect. With the reimposition of travel restrictions, it really put a lid on domestic travel, and when you have towns like Queenstown which rely so heavily on tourism, they were disproportionately affected by those recent restrictions. If there is some upside from this result, it's that BNZ senior economist says that despite these signals of a contraction, the result is still consistent with underlying economic recovery. What he's really saying is that if you compare this result with what we saw back in April and May, it really isn't that bad, and we're still on the path to recovery, and he expects that the result for this month will be markedly better than what we saw for August.
Okay. Some other data showing that the pandemic has been a bit of a spur for business creation.
Yeah, the accounting software Xero, they've revealed some trends today that's picked up, and it's picked on these trends amongst its users in New Zealand, the UK and Australia. And they say amongst many of the business casualties they've seen during the pandemic, there's actually been a healthy demand for systems that relate to e-commerce and actually managing expenses. And this is because more people are looking to set up businesses. And this may seem like a bonkers idea. This may not be the right time to be setting up businesses. The idea of actually going to your bank and taking out a business loan makes me sort of shiver, but that's probably because I don't have quite the appetite for risk that some of these other people do. But the reason why this might be happening is I got this idea from a small business advocate. He created this forum online and had hundreds of thousands of people engaging with it, and one of the trends he noticed was that for those people who lost their jobs due to COVID, they didn't want to rely on someone else giving them a job. They really wanted to take control of their financial futures. And I've seen this, and there's been plenty of anecdotes I've heard about this.
And we did a lovely story last Friday, Nita Blakeperson did, on a woman who used her redundancy payment to set up a sweet shop.
Yeah, well, I spoke to a couple of guys a month or two ago. They used to work for Green Cabs, which was put into liquidation during the pandemic. Well, they'd spent quite a bit of money, obviously, buying their taxis. They felt that there was still going to be a market out there for those low-emission, zero-emission taxi services. And they thought, what the hey, why not? They decided to, let's just launch this business and see how we go. Because they were using their own money, they felt like they weren't going to lose that much. And they thought, let's just see what we can make out of this. It's better than just sitting around and doing nothing. So I think all of this speaks to the fact that a lot of people, they're just trying to create opportunities for themselves. It's a very trying time. And like the story you mentioned on Friday, hopefully we can see some more successful stories to come out of this in the months to come.
So what have the numbers been telling us today, Nicholas?
So yeah, the NZX Top 50, that's up 1/3%, or by 43 points to 11,791. Our dollar is at 66.9 US cents, 91.6 Australian, 52.2 British pence.
Oh, 52.
And gold is up a touch to $1,945 US an ounce.
Thanks, Nicholas. Nicholas Poynton with our business news there.